Friends, I commend my colleague Sunita for a powerful speech at the recent convention of American Federation of Muslims of Indian Origin, AFME, describing her personal journey as a progressive Hindu facing formidable challenges along the way. I would like to share a bit of my own parallel journey before I met Sunita a little over a year ago. I venture to do so in recognition of the fact that many progressive Hindus in India and the diaspora appear to be on similar journeys themselves. For over 3 decades, I've been working on rural development projects, disaster relief and rehabilitation, and communal harmony initiatives in India. I've traveled the length and breadth of the country that I love so dearly. I even worked for the government of India in the early stages of the Aadhaar project, but that's another story for another time. However, in all my life work in India and in the US, I've always identified myself as an Indian and as an Indian American. My Hinduness, such as it is, has always been personal, tucked away in my inner recesses. I had never ever felt the need to publicly declare my faith in my work, except in one instance when I was fighting Hindu nationalists' blatant attempts to change California textbooks to sugarcoat the caste system and to erase the very word Dalit from our children's history books. Well, Sri Narendra Modi's BJP and the RSS abruptly interrupted my journey as a self-identified Indian when they were re-elected in 2019. As I surveyed how rapidly Indian polity, especially communal relations, had deteriorated since the 2002 Gujarat anti-Muslim pogroms, with Modi at the helm, I strongly felt that well-meaning progressive Hindus had made a historic blunder by not speaking up louder as Hindus against the purveyors of hate when they still had a chance to influence the course of events and were in a position to have honest conversations with their fellow Hindus. Today, we see the alarming results of that complacency on all of our parts. Modi's laboratory of hate from Gujarat has now turned into full-scale production at the national level, with Modi and Shah directly supervising the shop floor, so to speak, from Delhi. Genuine conversations about the course of politics and what it means to be progressive Hindu in India have ceased, even around family dinner tables. Hindutva nationalists have taken over almost all political and religious institutions, and they have rushed in to occupy all the spaces willingly vacated by progressive Hindus over the years, like myself. What is purely a political and a fascist movement is now claiming to speak for all Hindus and for ancient faith, with the rare exception of people like the late Swami Agnivesh. The RSS, VHP, BJP combined has completely co-opted Hindu faith leaders who seem nowhere in sight to defend their oft-declared noble Upanishadic thought, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, as people are being lynched on the streets and beaten up for merely being Muslim or Christian in their Hindu Rashtra. Indeed, the chief of RSS now openly says, hereafter only Hindus will be heard here. If you want to stay here, then you have to accept the superiority of Hindus. So here I am today as a member of a new minority Hindu community with my colleagues and supporters of Hindus for Human Rights, each of us in our own unique place in the spectrum of Hinduness, but who are united in our goals of working for a caste-free, pluralistic, and democratic India with true equality for all. These goals are not all that different from those of numerous other organizations and individuals working for human rights and religious freedom, both in India and the diaspora. But there's one difference. We speak as Hindus for the rights of all communities, and we stand ready to retake even a tiny bit of that religious and interfaith space, which is now completely dominated by political Hindutva. We want to do much more in the coming months and be able to put our stake in the ground as a more authentic voice of Hindus in the Indian American community especially in Washington, D.C. Whether or not you're a Hindu, we need your support in our arduous journey. We have the same exact destination as yours, only that we are taking a slightly different path to that destination. If you're Hindu American who is ambivalent about where you stand, please consider what Vice President Biden has been warning us in the context of a similar divide in America. Silence is complicity. Ask yourself if you might wake up one day and realize that you did not do your bit to stop the hijacking of Hinduism and the march of India towards a fascist state. If you're a Hindu American lawmaker in Washington, D.C., I have no doubt at all that you're well informed about what's happening in India. If you choose to remain silent, despite knowing the kind of atrocities that are being perpetrated by the Modi regime, please take a moment to ask yourself this. Would you like history to remember you as a fighter for democratic values in both the countries, or as one who enabled fascism in India? Please also ask yourself if you might wake up one day to regret your double standards in fighting for democratic and constitutional values here in America, but you are a willing partner in selling out Indian democracy. Before I close, for those still in denial about the dreaded F word in the context of India, let me share a quote from Timothy Snyder's book on tyranny. I quote, "The European history of the 20th century shows us that societies can break, democracies can fall, ethics can collapse, and ordinary men can find themselves standing over death pits with guns, or swords and machetes perhaps, in their hands. It would serve us well to understand why. Fascists rejected reason in the name of will, denying objective truth in favor of glorious myth articulated by leaders who claim to give voice to the people. They put a face on globalization, arguing that its complex challenges were the results of a conspiracy against the nation." End of quote. I would urge you all to join us in this historic battle of our lives to save our home country from tyranny such as that described very well by Timothy Snyder. Let's also give a special shout out to younger Indians here and in India who seem prepared more than us to take the risk of their lifetime to preserve the idea of India. Jai Hind, Jai Bhim, Namaste, Wanakam, Salam, Shalom to all. Thank you so much for listening to me.